Hello, and welcome to the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast, the podcast redefining women's health one unfiltered conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jacqueline Rose, and every week I'll sit down with leading women's health experts and real women to share their lived experiences, bust health myths, challenge outdated and uninformed narratives, and explore what's really possible for women. We'll talk about periods, fertility, menopause, hormones, aging, and everything in between. This podcast is for every woman who ever felt confused, dismissed, or left out of the conversation about her own health. It is a space to celebrate women, break the silence, and open up conversations between mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. Please hit the follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode and share this podcast with your daughters, family, and friends. Let's get on with the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast. I'm so excited to have you here with me today. And I am really excited about the guest we have because I know this is going to be another super interesting conversation about women's lived experiences. This is not an expert guest, but this guest, I know you're going to resonate with so much of what she's going to share. Bazy, welcome. Tell everyone who you are, what you do, and we'll jump through our conversation.
Okay, thank you so much. It's so great to be here. So my name is Bazy Rubin. I'm a mother of four, and we say solopreneur, entrepreneur. I became a freelancer about 8 years ago. Started off with team building workshops, medical clowning workshops, everything in the world of connecting in people. And then obviously COVID took that all away. So I
Oh,
pivoted,
yes. Didn't it
pivot.
ruin so many of our entrepreneurial businesses, forced us to reassess and pivot? Yeah, that
Yeah, so
worked.
I pivoted to the world of video editing, video production, um, and that's really my main focus nowadays. Working with small businesses, nonprofits, anyone who needs to be on social media in order to grow their customers, and a lot of the whole running social media pages for clients as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I will just say that Bazi is an example herself of her own work. She is very prolific on social media, has done a huge amount of content over the last few years. So if she looks familiar to you, or if you recognize her name, it's probably because she's popped up on your feed somewhere. And if she hasn't, definitely go check her out. So everything that you've said obviously is not related to women's health, is not related to the conversations that, I am usually having.
But I'm
So
a woman.
but you are a woman and you have lived experiences, and
Yes, I
that's
do.
really why you're here. So let's sort of start with the fact that you are, I hope you're not embarrassed to share how old you are, because here we are very open about our age.
It's
Um,
not so much about embarrassing as I don't always remember the right age. So I usually confirm with my husband. I'm like, wait, so how old am I right now? So
what
right
year am I
now,
born? Yes.
yeah, my math skills are not. But I'm 34 years old. And
34. Okay.
yes.
So in my world, I place age along life stages. So
Hmm.
you are not perimenopause yet. I'm 51. I'm definitely in late perimenopause. Um, you are in what we call biologically, doesn't mean anything. It's not putting pressure on anyone, but the reproductive fertility years
Hmm.
biologically. And I will share, if that's okay, you are a mum of four. And you are, as you've said, an entrepreneur, a working mum. Your husband has been pulled away over the last few years, and very often you are a solo parenting mum.
Yeah.
So just talk to us about the reality of what that looks like to have your own business, to be having kids, to be actively engaged in you are a very hands-on mother. You are an amazing partnership with your husband, but obviously, as I said, sometimes you're also solo
When he's
parenting.
around.
Yeah, what does that mean? And what are the expectations? What is the reality? What are we dealing with here? What do we really need to sort of take off that Hollywood shine on the conversation
Oh,
and sort of get real about?
there's no Hollywood shine when it comes to me and my story. And one of the things that I try really hard to do when I do post on social media is to bring the unfiltered truth Okay? We're not going to sugarcoat it. Um, there's in terms of expectations, there are none. Okay? If we end the day with the same number of kids that we started the day, and they don't even have to be ours, as long as we started with four, we end with four. Okay? If I'm missing one, I'm going to grab another one off the street.
Right.
Our expectations are so low because my husband has been away for so much in the last 2 years. That was the only way to get through it. I mean, cornflakes is absolutely wonderful as a dinner for six. Um, and
I
there's no
mean,
shame in
do
it.
do
There's no
you
shame in it.
also see that maybe your expectations or the language or your frame of reference has changed as you have grown in your business, grown as a mother,
Mhm.
grown in the fact that the reality of your life means that you've been solo parenting? What do you see as sort of the changes that have happened?
Well, I've had to make a lot of shifts. I mean, I always have Phoebe yelling in my head, pivot, pivot. Like we're constantly pivoting, constantly pivoting. It wasn't just
Right.
COVID.
Yeah.
I feel like every 2 years I'm kind of reinventing myself. And, my husband loves when people ask me what I do because I don't even know how to answer that. Like you wanted me to do an introduction. I'm like, which parts are we focusing on? Because there's
Yeah,
so
I
many
do think you are
things.
one of the women that I think wears more hats than most. You
Mm.
really, really do have a lot of different identities.
Now, I think they all kind of connect. I love connecting with people. I love helping people. And I think a lot of these things, they may not be related to each other, but they're so related to each other in the end game. It's just
Hmm.
different languages of how we get there. And definitely there has been so much pivoting also in terms of my expectations, also in terms of what I do work-wise. I mean, when I had a partner who was home with me all the time, so being an entrepreneur was fantastic. He always says like, go do your thing, just go run with it. I'll be with the kids. But then when he can't be with the kids, so you're juggling everything. So taking on less clients, moving some clients over to my colleagues because I can't provide the level of service that I expect of
Yeah,
myself and that they expect of me.
yeah,
And at the same time, when there are moments of, okay, I've got a clear calendar, a burst of energy, whatever it is, like run, sprint,
yeah,
do as much as you can because soon you're not going to be able to.
yeah,
But it's like this. It's a roller
yeah,
coaster. It's
yeah,
not, yeah.
yeah,
And you never know what's going to happen. Like my
yeah,
husband gets called away at a minute's notice, so um we can't even plan anything.
yeah,
So I plan as if he's not around and as if I am a solo parent. And then
yeah,
if he's back, then it's a pleasant surprise.
yeah. And obviously, the coming back and leaving is obviously disruptive, also because the kids are waiting and you're waiting to say, "Hi, darling, kiss, hug. Now I'm going off to the spa. Yeah, you're in charge."
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to that whole narrative.
Mhm.
But I want to ask you about the mental health piece because I know that there is a mental health piece for you also going on here. Um, Share for me how that shows up, how it has shown up, sort of what that piece is playing. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because um, one of the things that is really important for me is having those conversations that we never used to have,
Mm.
um, that we are now having, but really to normalize all those things that we sort of, I always think about, you may be too young, but if you remember the film St. Elmo's Fire, where yeah, I thought so. So it was like the movie of the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s, all those, 80s movies with Rob Lowe and Demi Moore in key roles in St. Elmo's Fire. But one of the characters, her mother, does that thing, like whispering, divorce, or
Mm.
and that was like that's sort of how we used to talk about things,
Right.
whispered behind your hand because we don't want to talk about it around the dinner table.
Mhm.
So, but today things are different. Thank God things are different. And yeah, so share with me a little bit about
Well, I think the main concern all the time is, am I actually okay? Right? Because it's so hard to tell, especially when you're solo parenting and especially when you're trying to juggle a business and kids and everybody. Um, there are days that are so incredibly frustrating and you end so depleted. And then I have to check in with myself. Okay, well, am I like regular depleted or am I in trouble depleted? Right.
Mm.
It's a really important question and it happens all the time. And I think that that's really where I kind of look for guidance. So anytime that I feel like, okay, this was normal and I'm just gonna shower, go to bed, start again fresh tomorrow, great. But I've gotten a lot of help because sometimes I check in and I'm like, you know what? This isn't sitting right with me. Maybe it's a
Yeah,
bit more. If I wasn't me and I was my friend listening to me, maybe I would say go get some help, right? So I think that that's like the main piece, constantly checking in.
yeah,
This whole world of self-care and do things for yourself, a lot of times you have to pull it down to tangible, right? It's not just
yeah,
about getting your nails done. It's about, well, do I have the mental ability to deal with my clients and then listen to a child of mine who needs help? Do I have the ability to prep dinner and also not end the night crying hysterically because I can't do this anymore, right? So
yeah,
constantly um, evaluating what you need and what you don't need, where I can let go and where I can't let go. Yeah, and a lot of self-humor. I think that's one of the things that
yeah,
saves me every time. Some of my best videos are videos where I feel just awful and I'm crying on camera. But I make it so ridiculous that for an example, there's a construction site right next door. And for some reason, instead of talking to us, they kept blocking my car in the parking spot with a giant crane. Okay.
oh,
And then it's child pickup, and my husband's not around, and my car is stuck in, so I can't drive out. So I posted
oh,
about it. Now, I was ready to break. I said, all of the things that I'm going through and all of the tremendous hardship don't compare to this stupid crane that keeps blocking
yeah,
my car. But to be able to see that and frame it, and then everybody was laughing about it because it's so ridiculous, right? But
yeah,
it's very painful at the same time.
yeah,
So being able to laugh about it is a really big piece, and I find it incredibly healing.
yeah.
I'm always saying that I share things online because going to a psychologist is very expensive. So we have to, got to be very like careful about what we are going to talk to the psychologist and what we're not. So anything we're not, we're going to share online, and we get that support. But it's also the second piece really is creating a community and having people that I could ask for help, um, and also asking for help, which is oh boy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different pieces to it.
Okay, so I've written down three things that I want to sort of focus on. The
Hmm.
first thing is you said listening to your body and listening to what you need and that
Yeah.
check-in. And I think you're right. Like so many people think self-care is a mani-pedi. And I'm very much when I work with my clients, they're like, yeah, like that's great, but that's not really self-care. Like it may be what self-care looks like for you, but actually self-care is what you talked about. It is that check-in.
Hmm.
What's going on with my body? How am I really feeling? What do I need now?
Right.
And that is something that is really important. And I love that you said that because that already sets you apart from so many other people because so many of us are just like in the rat race, on that hamster wheel. We just do, there are expectations, and then what we do is we don't check in and then we're screaming at our kids, we're screaming at our spouse, we're
Mhm.
screaming at the barista in the coffee shop.
I like to scream with the kids. I say,
Yeah,
okay, we're gonna take a minute here. Okay. We're all so frustrated, so upset. Three, two, one. Ah! But it's amazing and it's incredibly
yeah,
healing. And I think it's also important because then they
yeah,
see that their mother is human also, right?
yeah.
So yes,
And
definitely
very
screaming with,
practical
not
skills
at.
of how to, yeah, I love that. I love that screaming with. The other thing you talked about is humor. And for you, humor is a major component of at least how you're externally presenting yourself on social media. But I know humor is that is, I would, in my language, would say one of your management strategies
Mm,
is humor. And the other thing you said, which I did want to ask you about, is that support and community.
mm,
Because at the end of the day, whether you're solo parenting or you have a very loyal
present partner beside you, if we are doing it all, which I hate
Mhm.
that phrase, but being a working mother and a wife and showing up and doing all those things, I think we need to finally admit that we can't do it alone
Oh yeah.
and that we can't do everything 24 hours a day. Like
Mhm.
there's got to be some realism in this phrase of doing it all or having it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what
Um,
does that look like for you? How does that show up for you?
well, first of all, it's hard because we're so programmed to do it all and juggle it all, right? Um, when when you ask somebody what they do and they say just one thing, people are like,
Right.
"What?" We've been so programmed that we need to juggle. I
Yeah.
like saying juggle, not doing it all, juggling, because
Yeah.
juggling is hard. And juggling means you're not holding more than one ball in your hand at a time. Okay. So what does that look like? It looks like the yelling with the kids that, the only way to do it is with the community. And I ask for help also when my husband is home. Um, and I think that when they say it takes a village, the part that you need to add on to that sentence is go find your village, right? It's
Yeah.
not just, oh, there once was a village and everyone helped you. No, you have
Yeah.
to go find it because
Yeah.
when I first started out as an entrepreneur, I was in my 20s and I joined a group on Facebook where everybody was 10 to 15 years older than me.
Yeah.
That's probably how we first connected, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
and I remember there was this one day where somebody, one of the posts that I shared and asking for help and whatever, and somebody's like, wait, how old are you? You're doing this now? Like when you have little babies at home? No, you're supposed to wait 10 years and then do it. But being able to be surrounded by like-minded women who are entrepreneurial and who get you. Um, I think so much of where I am today is because of the hand-holding that women had extended me in that group and in real life. And and now to have that privilege of holding other people's hand and saying, "Come, I've done this because I've been taught, so now I'll help you. Let's get this juggling on the road." Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's incredibly powerful. And I
Yeah.
think that the communities that I've built for myself in order to get help, it's not a one-way street. And
Yeah.
that's really important because if you're always asking for help and not being able to help yourself, to help
Yeah.
others, um, then you'll end up feeling like you are not enough. But if you ask for help at certain times, and other times they will ask you for help, and you really have a village,
Yeah.
the sky's the
I
limit.
like what you just said, the community that you built.
Yes.
And I think that
It's
is
not
that's
my
very, yeah,
community,
yeah.
but I built it.
But you built it, you've created the community that you need for your situation. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. Everyone says it takes a village, it takes a community, it takes a this, it takes a that. But very often sort of you don't know where to start. Like, how do you find those people that are going to
Mm,
support you?
mhm.
And yeah, that's got to be an intense. Sometimes it's easy because it's through the kids or it's through,
Yeah.
your church, your synagogue, your whatever.
Mhm.
But very often you actually need to actively, intentionally curate the people you want to surround yourself with.
I think you always have to, because it takes a certain level of sharing who you are and a certain level of exposure that may not come naturally. Um, no one's gonna know that you need help if you don't tell them that you need help. Right? We talk about this all the time, my husband and I, about presents. I'm not good at giving gifts at all. My husband loves getting gifts. And I was like, okay, babe, tell me what it is you want for your birthday. I will go. I will buy it. I will wrap it up. I will hand it to you and happy birthday. Not because I don't love him, but because I don't know what he
Yeah,
needs. And I think that when it comes to asking for help and when people are drowning, if you don't articulate that you're drowning, you may not know what you need, and that's okay, right? But we first have to start with acknowledging the fact that you need help.
yeah,
And every time my husband has to go away for a few months, I let the world know. I say, okay, guys, I'm here and it's not easy and I need help. And same when I was stuck with my different businesses and different plans, to be able to say, hi, I don't know how to move forward here, or does anyone have experience with X, Y, and Z? To be able to say that, people love to help. People really love to help. And to be able to articulate it is I think the biggest part. Afterwards, it's easy. And
Yeah.
then you just have to figure out, well, what's actually helpful for me and what isn't, and make sure that you can frame that and use it to your best abilities.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say and what's coming up for me is really standing in your authentic knowledge and knowing of who you are and what you need. Sorry. And I think so many women don't take the time for very real reasons. Life
Right.
is so busy. There are so many expectations. We're comparing ourselves to everything and we see on social media for whatever the reasons are. Real life, busy, juggling, looking after aging parents, looking after young kids, health things, growing your business, working up your career ladder, whatever it is. We really have become very disconnected from the skill of listening to what it is that we need and then being able to express it. Because it's one
Mhm.
thing knowing, and then it's
Right.
another thing asking. And so what you're saying, even though you're saying it in a really calm way, I know is
Is that I put in some
really,
hard work.
yeah,
Yes.
it's really powerful. It's really powerful. It is not easy to get to, and especially, I'm going to sound so condescending, at a young age of 34, because a lot of women only get this realization in menopause or post-menopause when life has calmed down a little bit and they've got
Mhm.
the time to really connect, and they've gone on a perimenopause journey. Very often something has to happen to make you pay attention, to listen, um, in those younger years when there is so much noise. I guess that's the phrase. There's
Mhm.
so much noise, it's really difficult to find a way to pay attention to what is really going on and what your needs really are.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. There's a
Yeah,
lot to unpack in that sentence.
yeah, yeah,
Look, just
yeah,
on a global level, I mean, the fact that we went through COVID and I had to have a baby in the hospital with a mask on, right? These are little moments in time that are huge. To bring a baby into the world and not know if you can be with your baby or if they're going to separate you because somebody might be sick. Um, just because my personal experience, like I feel like it may not always be relevant to a lot of people, but I think just look at the past few years, the amount of stuff that we've had to go through.
yeah.
My oldest starting first grade with a mask, right? It's
Yeah.
mind-boggling the amount of stuff that we're going through, and obviously the last 2 years here in Israel have just been, they challenge you in so many ways every single day. So yeah, I sometimes say that I wish, like I miss who I was before. And if you say before when, it's so hard to tell you when, right? There's so many points and so many pivot.
Yeah,
There's just so much all the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah, but I didn't have a choice. I had to listen in because I felt like otherwise I'm going to fall apart. And,
yeah,
the biggest fear when you fall apart is, will I be able to pick up the pieces afterwards? So.
yeah, yeah. I know that you also have your own health journey, a couple of things that have happened along the way that you're happy to talk about. And I think it's a conversation that we really want to have. So I will let you begin that conversation
Mhm.
about, obviously, we've said that you're blessed with 4 kids, but in and amongst that time, you also had some miscarriages. I will, also say that I'm blessed with 5 kids, and in those years of having 5 kids, I had 2 miscarriages. I will say that I am not traumatized by my miscarriages. Um, one of the pregnancies that ended at 12 weeks was a very, very difficult
Mm.
early pregnancy. I was really not enjoying that I never enjoyed being pregnant, but that particular pregnancy was a very, very difficult one. So there
Mm.
was sort of like when it ended, it was like, oh, okay, it was never really meant to be. I want to give space to those women who have had traumatic miscarriages, who have been traumatized by their loss, who feel that those miscarriages were a very profound experience for them. I just want to give space and voice to those women. But tell me a little bit about your story, and most importantly, because I think it's not it's not in your experience, but what happened as a result of that experience? How did that change you
Mm.
in your awareness and things like that?
So my first miscarriage was also at 12 weeks. We went for a checkup, and then the plan was to go and tell our families that we're pregnant. And at that checkup, there was no heartbeat. Um, I don't think I'm traumatized today because I took action,
Right.
which I'll get to soon. But really, the experience was, we're finally starting a family. We're finally getting to it. And oh, and there's something growing inside of me, and it's so exciting, so wonderful. And then we got there and they said no heartbeat, and you should go to the hospital at some point. It was also very not clear, which I think was part of the problem. They were so not they were so not clear about what was expected of me and what
Yeah,
needs
what
to
happens
happen.
next?
Right. And I think that was such a big piece of it. Like there's just utter confusion. And we didn't have a car at the time. So, we were in one city and we took a bus to my parents, 45 minutes away, and I'm just bawling the whole time. My husband's just kind of quiet. And when we got there, we told our parents that we were pregnant and now we're not pregnant. But they didn't even know that we were pregnant, right? So it
Yeah,
was like a whole thing. And then my mother said to me, "Oh, I'm so sorry. One in four, right? One in four, it's like 25%, something like that."
wow.
But I didn't know that going in. And
Yeah,
that moment for me was a moment of, oh, but people know this and no one told me. People know this, no one told me.
yeah.
Um, So I started researching. I think that during that time, I think I suffered from postpartum depression, but we didn't know what it was. I had just started a new job
You were
and
experiencing postpartum depression from the miscarriage.
or whatever, maybe it's a different term. Like maybe
Right.
there was some sort of depression over there. I wasn't able to get out of bed, and I'm a person who's always out of bed. I had just started that week a new job in a women's educational institution. So I was surrounded by women who
Yeah.
most likely everyone has gone through something, but we don't talk about these things, right? I
Yeah.
feel like there's been such a shift in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
But at the time, no one was talking about anything. I was in bed and I would go to the store, and I would see a pair of like little shoes, and then I would lose time. I think I
Um,
stood next to this pair of shoes for maybe an hour, just crying. And I can't tell you how long, what happened. I just can't tell you. I got pregnant again pretty soon after, um, like just a few months after. And I feel like, thank God, being able to plunge into this journey again and then have a healthy baby,
yeah.
something snapped me out of it. But I always go to healthcare providers when after you give birth, they have this questionnaire about postpartum depression. And every time when they give me the questionnaire, I said, you have to give this questionnaire to women who go through miscarriages and any traumatizing experience because that's a really big part of this story. By the time my second miscarriage happened, we had a family event that night, like a big family celebration. And in the middle of the event, I realized that I was starting to bleed. But at this point, I had a 1.5-year-old, 2-year-old. So my husband actually took my son home, and I went to the hospital by myself. There was
Wow.
so much more. Um, there was so much more power that I had felt and confidence because I'd gone through this before and because
Yeah.
I'd already understood a little more. I did my research. When I went to the hospital, I was like, "Hi, I think I'm having a miscarriage." And they were so great. And they said, instead of making you wait with everybody, they took me to a private room and they checked and they said, "You are." And, we went through all the medical procedures.
So you
Um,
so you felt that you got sensitivity that second time? Do you feel you had the same sensitivity the first time, or you just didn't have the awareness the first?
No, there was no awareness. Like they said, you should go to hospital at some point. I love, okay. We went to my parents, and then I looked at the what's the word?
The referral.
Yeah, the referral. And it said like go to the hospital in the next 24 hours. So I was like, "Oh, I have to go now." Like things didn't click and it was
Yeah,
traumatizing. Things didn't
yeah,
click. So eventually
yeah,
we got to the hospital. I was like, "That's it. I'm never having kids. My body's broken." All the things that women say.
yeah.
There was
Cool.
a male nurse that came over to me in the hospital and I was crying, crying, crying. I also wouldn't let my husband be there, which is whatever. We were young, we were silly,
Yeah.
we don't do silly things like that anymore. Um, I had my mom with me, and this male nurse came over to me and he said, "Why are you so upset?" And I said, "Because I'm never going to have children." And he goes,
Yeah.
"That's a load of baloney." And he sat down to me and he said, next to me, and he said, "Well, what do you want to know? Because I'll tell you everything." And he explained to me about
Wow.
miscarriages. He told me, my wife had 3 miscarriages and we have 6 children. And you should know
Wow.
that a lot of times, statistically, a miscarriage will happen with your first time because your body doesn't know
Yeah.
what it's doing yet. And just to be able to like break it all down, I was so
Wow.
grateful for him
Wow.
giving me that time. So by the time the second one happened, it was a totally different ballgame. I already had a kid. I knew that this happens. I
Yeah.
was more prepared. But basically, after that first miscarriage, I started, because I was in this women's institution, I just started talking to all my colleagues. And every time I brought it up, whoever was in front of me said, "Oh, something similar happened to me," or "I didn't have that, but here's what I had." And to be able to start hearing that everyone goes through something, I was like, why are we not talking about this more? And I didn't want this to be the center of my life, but my husband and I decided that every time a friend of ours gets married, wants to start a family, we will offer to have a conversation with them and just give them a whole bunch of knowledge that hopefully they'll never have to use. But it's the things that people don't talk about, right? So anything that has to do with a relationship and with miscarriages and with young children and advocating for yourself in the health system, so much that I had to go through. And I had also, I mean, eventually we figured out that the miscarriages are probably because I have a blood clotting issue. But the healthcare
Mm.
system didn't want to give me the referral to do the tests because they're very expensive. The doctor, and I kid you not, said to me, "Listen, you had a miscarriage and then a baby and then a miscarriage. I really would like to see 3 miscarriages in a row and then I'll give you the referral." And I said, "Nobody wants to see 3 miscarriages in a
Oh my.
row." And that was a
Oh.
very, very poor choice of words. So I had to do a lot
Wow.
of fighting. Eventually, I was able to do those tests when I was 9 months pregnant with my second. We got the results. But a different doctor who I was with told me to start with shots with blood thinners
Yeah.
already at the beginning of the pregnancy and probably saved my baby's life. He's now
Wow.
7 years old and wonderful. But like to be able to
Yeah.
know that you need to do these things and have that conversation. And there were I had a friend in university. When he got married, I told him, I said, "Listen, if your future wife wants to have a conversation with me, I'd love to." And I spoke with her and I told her about the miscarriages. I said, "Keep it in the back of your mind." 2 years later, my friend called me and he said, "We're in the hospital and the only person my wife is willing to talk to right now is you." I don't know her. I don't know her. But because we had a conversation when she went through a miscarriage, I was able to be there for her. And when it happened to her, her first thought wasn't, "Oh my gosh, I'll never have kids." It was, "Oh, right. Someone told me about this once."
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a blessing to be able to have the knowledge and feel empowered and know that not everything goes as planned. Not everything is easy. The amount of friends that I have going through fertility treatments and dealing with all kinds of medical issues. On television, you see people having babies all the time. They pop them out like
Yeah.
candies. It's great.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and I think, I mean, I want to go back to what you talked about, but yeah, the biggest myth that we see in the movies is you have a one night stand and get pregnant when you didn't want to get pregnant, and
yeah.
it's so easy that you just got pregnant from a one time thing, and obviously we
Mhm.
know getting pregnant can happen at
Right?
any point with anyone at
I
any
always say I'm really good at getting pregnant. I'm just I'm having trouble keeping it, right?
Keeping it.
Every
Yeah.
person has a different stage where they get stuck,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
people don't talk
But
about that.
it is, we are not, that's also, I'm so happy you're talking about this. I'm so happy that you have taken on that responsibility to share with, you know, other women and couples. It's one of the intentions of this podcast to open up these
Mm.
conversations. But I think that one of the things that you are doing that is really amazing is to talk about the things and to realize that everyone has something.
Yeah.
Everyone has something. And it may not be that external presentation of what they want you to think. They may
Mm.
want you to think they've got it all put together and they've got their nails done and that everything's all great. And really behind the scenes, they're struggling with mental health or fertility issues. They've got a
Yeah.
kid struggling with, mental health or some learning diagnosis or something, but you'd never know it because that vulnerability is still seen as a sign of weakness, even though we have changed the conversation and we have changed the language. There is
Mhm.
still some inbuilt something where vulnerability is still seen as weakness, and you've got to present as I've got it all together. Because if I
Yeah.
don't have it all together, then what are people going to think of me?
Yeah.
It's kind of
It's a
hard,
slow
right?
change, but it is changing.
Yeah,
It is changing.
yeah, yeah. So, what are the things that you have really learned from talking about things? What have you sort of seen? What are what are you, I guess, what are sort of some of the things that you have really observed because you are talking about things and because you're having these conversations with women that didn't know things in the past, or people are now coming to you saying, oh my gosh,
Mm.
you're sharing your story. Let me tell you my story.
I mean, I think we're starting to see a shift. I'm not the only one talking about things. And that makes me really happy because I have 4 children and I'm juggling a bunch of businesses. I don't have time to talk about things all day long. It makes me very happy when people are open about these kinds of struggles. Um, I also know a lot of people are still very, very closed about struggles and they go through things alone, and it hurts to watch people go through that. So
Yeah.
anytime someone will share with me that they're struggling with something, the first thing is to just tell them that I'm so grateful that they're sharing this with me. I don't think it's any different from, a child coming up and saying, I have a problem, right? You first stop and say, wow, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And then if I can help, I'm going to help. But really, I feel like that's the biggest part. There's also a guy who lives down the block, who they've gone through a bunch of miscarriages also, and it was very traumatizing for him. And he said that when he went through it, there was
Mm,
no support for the men. There was nothing.
yeah.
So he actually put together a whole group, and he does all this
Yeah.
advocacy for time to heal, and for the right tools to do that. So seeing other people start these initiatives and talk about it, for me, that's really all that matters because
Yeah.
if we have knowledge, we we can do better. It may not change the outcome. I may still have a miscarriage, but how I react to it, the fact that the second miscarriage was not traumatizing in any way. A friend had texted me while I was sitting in the hospital, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "I'm in the hospital. How are you?" And he's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, I'm going through a miscarriage." And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Um, so what else?" Like to be able
Yeah.
to do
Well,
that.
it makes other people feel uncomfortable because they don't know how it's like.
100%. No,
Are
well,
you
you
are you are
also,
you
we said we build our communities, we pick our friends, we have our village, right? So he
right?
knew
So
what
this
you're
is where
supposed to
it
say,
comes
exactly.
into play. This is where it
Yeah,
comes into play.
absolutely. Um, but that I think, it's very powerful to be able to talk about these things and not let them take over your life.
Yeah.
It's just part of
Yeah.
it's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned to me earlier that the miscarriages experience and the research you had to do and the learning you had to do um, really made you aware about your body, women's health, gave you a real desire to understand more about those types of things. So,
Hmm.
where has that taken you on that piece of the journey of like, because this is what I definitely know to be true is that women in generalities only really connect with their body when their
Mhm.
body starts to fail them. There
Yeah.
isn't this like proactive, I want to look after my body and I'm going to be healthy, or I'm going to learn what I have to do to, age well and be healthy and wake up in the morning with energy. We really only pay attention to our bodies when things go wrong.
Mhm.
So what did you learn on that sort of women's health journey as a result of this?
Well, I will say, not so jokingly, the minute I got married, the running gag in the house was that my body is always falling apart. And I think that in general,
Mm.
as soon as you step into that world of pregnancy and child birthing years, like there's always something that's hurting or wrong or broken. And because we are caring for others, it's so easy not to fix it. It's too
Mhm.
easy not to fix it and to just say,
Yeah,
I'll just deal with the pain.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm too
So
busy, and
too busy.
we put and if you are a mother, you're putting your children before
Right.
you, and
When
yeah,
I when I when I was a mother of two, um, I was so out of shape physically, um, that if my husband would suggest that we go to the park with the kids, I would cry because that meant I had to walk up a bunch of stairs.
yeah.
I wasn't even like overweight or anything. I was just incredibly out of shape. And when that had happened, I looked at myself. I was like, do I want this to be my life? Like I had two boys at the time. I'm a mother of boys. I need to have energy and I don't have any energy.
Yeah.
So I signed up for a running group with the goal of running 5K. And it completely transformed me. I think that was the first time that I started really taking care of myself. Like after the first miscarriage, which was a couple of years prior, it was more about research and understanding what happens, what doesn't happen, um, to have more of a risk assessment, right? But really, it was after my second that I realized I need to make a very active choice. Do I want to be a mother who is present in her children's lives, or do I want to be that mother who sits on the sidelines and watches? And I didn't want to be the one who sits on the side. I wanted to run around with my kids. So I started running, literally. Um, and at first I was running for about 30 seconds and then I couldn't handle it. It was amazing. I was the loudest and complained the most in this group. Like the instructor would be like, "Now we're gonna run for a minute." And I'm like, like just oh man. I was like the reluctant runner, but I was running. And
Yeah.
eventually I was running 3K 3 times a week, 5K
Wow.
3 times a week, which was so wonderful. Um, and I've tried to be very aware. I've had to deal with different issues that, well, usually all around being pregnant. But I fixed most of them. And so I think that was really the understanding that if something's wrong, you should fix it and it's not okay to just ignore things, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, my computer is dying, so I just need to plug it in.
That is all good. Go plug in
As
the
I'm
wire.
talking about fixing people, gotta fix my laptop. Okay. Okay.
um, okay, so you really are talking about so many different things, but that sort of under like that main current that I'm hearing from you really is that, and I'm sort of like going to express it in a slightly different way, but it's sort of like to, it sounds so corny, but to love yourself enough to put yourself first, to
It's not corny.
know that putting yourself first and paying attention, um, and we talk about this so much, and so often the response is, but I'm too busy. Like
Mm,
I'm just too busy. Like don't fill my head with things that aren't realistic. Like don't say I have to put myself first and I've got a mammogram appointment
hmm
shortly. That's me. I think every woman should give herself a birthday present every year of going to have a mammogram. I think that should be your birthday present. That's just my opinion.
But
But
it's not, I think you're saying it very delicately. I say it very harshly to myself. It's just like about running in the park, right?
yeah,
Um, do I want to be there for the people that I care about? Do I want to be able to help them when they need something? Do I want to be a person who is dependent on society or helping society, right? And I look at it in a very, small level. When I look at my family, I look at my children and I say, do I want to be here? And and I think if we don't put ourselves first, then we're hurting everybody around us. We're hurting them.
Yeah.
A mother who is happy and a mother who is proud of what she does and where she is and
Yeah.
all of that. I mean, I mentioned to you before that I started a program where I'm learning 4 days a week. It's
Yeah.
incredible to use our brains again. Oh my goodness. It's been 10 years.
Yeah.
And I know I've been
Yeah.
using my brains to figure out, groceries and to work with clients, but to be able to do something that's just for me. And I think that's such
Yes.
an incredible message for my kids. They
Yes.
see me and they're like, wow, Mama is taking care of herself. That's
Yes.
cool. That's
Yes.
cool. But I don't think it's
Yes.
about putting myself first. It's another aspect of how am I taking care of everything. And if I want to juggle, I have to have two hands to juggle with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing, Bazi. This is really so powerful. As we come to the end of our conversation, I ask everyone the same question as we
mhm,
end. And that is, this podcast is called The Things I Want My Daughters to Know. And I ask my guests, what do you want your daughters? I know you do have a daughter, but your nieces, your goddaughters, that next generation of women,
mhm.
what do you want them to know? And I think you've shared so much here, but if there's one message that you really want to make sure that that you're instilling in your daughter, that that next generation of women really need to know.
I think I want her to know that she needs to talk about everything all the time to everyone.
Yeah.
If we don't put ourselves out there and if we don't ask questions and if we don't share, then we won't know. Knowledge
Yeah.
is such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And it helps us minimize the heartbreak, which will happen along the way. But
Yeah.
to be able to talk about it and to find the right people to talk about it with, people who will
Well,
take you
that's what I was
seriously
thinking.
and
Yeah.
love
It's
you
not just like
no
going
matter
into a
what.
coffee shop and,
Oh yeah.
saying,
No, that's weird.
talk about
But
miscarriage.
even when you share online, figuring out what is right to share and with who you're sharing it with, all of this. But to be able to have that village of people where you can say, I'm stuck, I'm hurting, I'm puzzled, and I have a question, right? I think that's all of it. We're not going to be able to learn everything and obtain every inch of knowledge. It doesn't work. But when you talk about things with other people who have their experiences and you're sharing with each other, then eventually you'll be pointed in the right direction
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
talk about
That's
it.
really powerful. That's really powerful. And I think that the talking and the sharing, it comes together with creating your own village, like curating the people that are really that you can turn to whenever you need, and that they can turn to you. It's
Yeah.
reciprocal. It's not just a one-way street.
Hmm.
Wow, that's really powerful. Bazi, this has been amazing. We've talked about so many different things. I knew we were going to go off on lots of different tangents, but
We said we're
I really
juggling.
think, yeah, I really think people who are listening, it's going to resonate so much with what you've shared, because this is the real messy. This is real life, and I know that we are all going through things. So just being able to share your experiences and hearing what you've gone through and how you've navigated it is so incredibly valuable. Tell us, where can people find you? Where can they reach you if they want to know more about you, if they want to check out your content, your social media content? Where are you hanging out?
Everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok even. Ugh. Bazy Rubin.
I mean, you should, like, you're the demographic for TikTok. I can't do
No,
TikTok, but
no.
you should be the demographic for
I
TikTok.
think it's even younger. I think it's like 18, 15, 18. I don't know. But yeah, I'm everywhere. And even ChatGPT, if you ask ChatGPT to tell you about Bazy Rubin, it's pretty darn accurate. So
That's so
creepily
funny.
so. But yeah, you can find me wherever. And I always put English subtitles onto all my videos so that my grandmothers will know what I'm talking about. Uh,
I know. I
So
think if people
you're
see you, they
welcome.
don't always know how bilingual you are. So,
Yes. Well, that's the fun part. Keep
yeah,
them guessing.
yes, exactly. Oh, well, thank you. It's been really wonderful. And to everyone listening, please go check out Bazy. As you can hear, she really has a lot to share. She's been through a lot and she is very, she does share a lot of her experiences. And I love you. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to everyone listening. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast. And I look forward to seeing you at another episode. Have a great day.